Welcome to the Aging and Disability Resource Connection Dementia Care Training, Implementing Person-Centered Dementia Support, Tier 1. This is Module 2 of Tier 1, Communication and Behavioral Expressions. This training consists of 2 tiers. The first tier is designed for all ADRC staff and partners and focuses on the information and skills needed to provide initial support and referral services to those with dementia and their care partners. The second tier is designed for options counselors and other staff and partners who provide more detailed service planning and support. Although this training is specifically focused on assisting those living with dementia, some of the information presented in both tiers may be helpful in your work supporting people with mental illness or physical disabilities and their families as well. After all, every consumer deserves person-centered services and supports. This training is the second module within Tier 1, and in it we will explore the actions that we commonly refer to as challenging behaviors and discuss how to best support families and other care partners in responding to those behaviors in a person-centered way. As we designed this training, we put a lot of thought into what information would give you the best tools to provide support and compassion to those living with dementia and their care partners. While it is important to understand the more clinical aspects of dementia, what is even more important is that you understand that people with dementia are still individuals with a full range of feelings and emotions. Each person with dementia is a human being who needs and deserves respect, dignity, choice, and the opportunity to contribute to the world in some way. Often, caregivers and others, even those with the best intentions, pay so much attention to trying to treat dementia and its symptoms, they forget to treat the person living with dementia. By focusing on the person as an individual rather than just another dementia patient, you will also get to know that person's strengths and the strengths that exist in his or her natural support system. As a result, you'll be able to determine his or her needs and preferences, and therefore you'll be better able to offer the best supports and resources. Please view the first 4 modules of Tier 1 in order 1 through 4. Each module will take you about 45 minutes to complete, give or take. If you continue on to Tier 2, please also view these modules in order, as each builds on information from the previous module. At the end of each module, we ask that you complete a brief feedback survey, which will let us know what areas we may need to focus on more, and how helpful you found the training for your job. Following modules 1 through 4, which make up Tier 1, and modules 5 through 8, which make up Tier 2, you will also be asked to take a brief knowledge assessment, so we know what you learned from the training. Remember, you may pause this webinar at any time if you would like to take notes, or if you're viewing the webinar with others, you may choose to pause and discuss some aspect of the training. We encourage you to take your time and do whatever you need to make this training as helpful as possible. Thank you in advance for your attention and thoughtfulness. Now let's get started. I am hungry for the life that's being taken away from me. I'm still a human being. I still exist. I have a family. I hunger for friendship, happiness, and the touch of a loved hand. What I ask for is that what is left of my life shall have some meaning. Give me something to die for. Help me to be strong and free until myself no longer exists. It is never going to be written in a prayer book, but my prayer is, God, you gave this to me, now help me deal with it. People think it's a terrible tragedy when somebody has Alzheimer's, but in my mother's case, it's different. My mother has been unhappy all her life. For the first time in her life, she's happy. Though those with Alzheimer's might forget us, we as a society must remember them. The fact is, almost everyone knows a person with Alzheimer's or dementia, or a person who's a caregiver for someone with Alzheimer's or dementia. As of 2014, over 59,000 Oregonians are living with Alzheimer's disease or a related disorder. That's about the same number of people it takes to fill a football stadium. Approximately 1,300 people died from Alzheimer's disease in Oregon in the year 2010. The prevalence of Alzheimer's disease in Oregon is expected to rise 42% between 2014 and 2025. In 2014, the Alzheimer's Association estimates that 173,000 Oregonians provided 196 million hours of unpaid care to loved ones with Alzheimer's and other dementias. That care is valued at $2,446 million. In your work or partnership with the ADRC, you will come into contact with many people living with Alzheimer's or dementia, as well as their caregivers and other loved ones. The help and support you can provide is incredibly important. That's why this training was created, to support you so you can support them. In this module, we're going to explore the concept of behavioral expressions known as challenging behaviors, and try to see these behaviors in a new light. We'll also talk about the way that environmental and social factors can impact the actions of people with dementia. And finally, we'll identify some resources you can offer to those living with dementia and their loved ones. Often, when people hear the words Alzheimer's disease or dementia, one of the first things they think of is challenging or unsettling behaviors. In your work or partnership with the ADRC, you've probably heard family or other care partners describe some of the following types of actions or behaviors: wandering, pacing, or other forms of motor restlessness, repeating the same question or phrase over and over again, refusing care, trying to exit the home or other area in search of someone or something that may or may not be available, becoming upset, agitated, or aggressive during care or in other situations, having hallucinations or delusions, showing signs of depression or anxiety, and finally apathy or withdrawal. You've probably also heard or even used one of these terms to describe the actions of a person with dementia: problem behaviors, difficult behaviors, inappropriate behaviors, disruptive behaviors, or behavioral dysfunctions. These and other terms are frequently used to describe certain types of behaviors that caregivers may perceive as unsettling and restrict individuals from taking part in everyday life or pose a serious risk to their own physical and psychological well-being or to the safety of others. The problem with each of the terms I just listed is that these terms seem to suggest that the person with dementia is the problem, that they're somehow at fault or somehow responsible for the situation. It's also easy to focus on how challenging behavior affects us, but forget the impact on the person with dementia who is exhibiting the behavior. Think for a moment about these examples. When James pushes away his caregiver and strikes out at her as she tries to get him to take his medication, it's frustrating for the caregiver, but it's probably equally or even more frustrating for James, who may not understand what the medications are for. When Fatima yells at her son and refuses to get into his car to go to a doctor's appointment, her son feels frustrated and angry. What he doesn't realize is that Fatima doesn't want to go out into the rain, and she's frustrated too. When Mr. Simpson calls out the same phrase over and over again, it undoubtedly becomes disturbing to those nearby. But Mr. Simpson's caregivers don't realize that Mr. Simpson is merely reacting to a fire engine siren that has upset him. In many cases, when a person with dementia exhibits behaviors that are challenging or unsettling, we focus only on getting the behavior to cease. What we forget, though, is to look for the reason behind the behavior. You can work with families to help them play the role of investigator and really examine the reasons behind most instances of challenging behavior. Upon closer examination, you'll find that many challenging behaviors are caused by unmet needs that the person with dementia has trouble communicating. This is an extremely important point, because if we only try to get rid of the behavior, we'll never be able to really help the person feel better, and the behavior will likely continue to occur or get worse. Unfortunately, many people assume that because a person has memory loss, he or she no longer needs anything more than food, water, shelter, clothing, and physical security. If those basic physical needs are met and a person still exhibits challenging behaviors, it's often assumed that the behavioral expressions are just a normal but unpleasant part of dementia. This, however, is simply not true. Most challenging behaviors are attempts at communicating an unmet need by a person who has trouble finding the words to express him or herself. In the last session, we talked about how people with dementia have difficulty communicating verbally. When a person with dementia is unable to say, "I'm uncomfortable," "I'm frustrated," "I'm bored," "I'm in pain," "I'm lonely," or "I'm confused," he or she is left to express those needs in other ways. Those other ways can take the form of what we call challenging behaviors. Because detecting and treating possible pain or physical discomfort should always be the first step in responding to challenging behavioral expressions, those causes should always be considered first. If a person is experiencing pain or discomfort, it can have a major impact on his or her behavior. Here are some things to watch for. Urinary tract infections. These occur frequently in people with dementia for a variety of reasons. They often cause lots of pain and therefore a sudden onset of behaviors that are unsettling and not typical of the person's normal actions. Once the urinary tract infection, or UTI, is identified and the person gets the needed medication, the pain-related behaviors should fade. Medication reactions can also cause pain or discomfort. Older adults often take a variety of medications, and sometimes these medications can interact to cause unintended side effects, one of which may be discomfort-related behaviors. Arthritis is common among older people, and it can cause great pain, especially on days when joints are particularly swollen or irritated. A variety of other conditions and illnesses can cause pain or discomfort, and this can result in behavioral expressions that may be challenging to care partners. It's important for care partners to do whatever they can to identify if an issue is pain-related and to take care of that issue immediately. Many of the above-mentioned health issues may not be obvious, but they do require medical examination. You should encourage caregivers to work closely with the person's family doctor or specialist to treat, alleviate, or prevent these conditions. If you've ruled out pain or discomfort as the cause of behavioral expressions, the unmet need may be psychological. If you think back to Kitwood's list of needs of people with dementia from Module 1, you'll remember that in addition to the basic physical needs of food, water, shelter, clothing, security, and other things, people also have psychological needs. They need attachment, comfort, identity, occupation or meaning, and inclusion. In fact, if you think about it, people with dementia have the exact same psychological needs we all have, regardless of their degree of memory loss. However, because people with memory loss often have difficulty communicating through words, they may exhibit challenging behaviors, some of the ones we just discussed, when their needs go unmet. So how can we help families and care partners figure out what unmet need a person with dementia is trying to communicate when that person has trouble finding the words to express it? Figuring out what unmet need a person may be experiencing or expressing involves going back to the very heart of person-centered care, knowing and considering each person as an individual. Knowing something about the person's life history, background, hobbies, preferences, and other details can provide the most valuable clues about what need the person may be trying to communicate. Luckily, families and friends may know much of this information and may be able to share it with you. Here's an example. Before her memory loss, Marietta was always the well-respected head of her family and the person everyone came to for good advice. After her diagnosis, however, people began to treat her differently. Instead of relying on her, they began to do everything for her. Instead of asking her for her opinion, they made decisions without talking to her. In this case, it's reasonable to expect that Marietta might really miss the role and long for an opportunity to feel a sense of purpose and respect from those around her. If her need to feel a sense of purpose goes unmet, in time it's reasonable to expect that she might become frustrated, upset, even angry, isn't it? And if her attempts to communicate her need with words are not successful because of difficulties communicating, it's reasonable to see why she might yell, holler, or physically lash out, isn't it? But now let's imagine Marietta's situation taking a different turn. When Marietta first begins to feel down about missing her role as the head of the family, her daughter Sasha notices that something's wrong. Because Sasha knows Marietta's history and personality, she knows how important Marietta's role as the head of the family has been in her life. Sasha recognizes that as Marietta's dementia has progressed, fewer people have asked her for advice or opinions about important matters. Knowing this, Sasha starts to talk more to Marietta about her important role in the family. She reminds Marietta about how much the family loves her, how she's helped them achieve their goals through her wisdom and good advice. She talks with other family members and lets them know of Marietta's desire to still play the role of a mentor and wise elder. In short, Sasha meets Marietta's need to experience her role as an honored and respected member of the family, thereby eliminating the challenging behaviors, but more importantly, supporting Marietta's identity and helping her to feel valued and important to those she loves. In this example, Marietta had an unmet need to experience the identity she had always cherished, that of a wisdom keeper and an advice giver. However, because of her dementia-related symptoms, she could not express that need other than through her behavior. Once her need was identified and met, there was no longer a need for the challenging behaviors. While the example above is pretty simple, it does illustrate the way that many challenging behaviors come about, as well as the way caregivers and other loved ones can eliminate or decrease behavior by simply listening for and meeting the needs of the person with dementia. One of the most important things to do when interacting with a person with dementia is to practice empathy. Ask yourself, if I were this person, how would I react in this situation? In other words, think about what might the person be thinking? How might the person be feeling? What might the person be experiencing? And how would I behave if I was that person? Practicing empathy shifts your attitude from, she's just acting agitated because she has dementia, or she's just being difficult, to, she's expressing an unmet human need. What can I do to understand and meet that need? While you, as a provider of information and assistance, won't have the opportunity to practice these skills directly, understanding them and being able to communicate them to families and other care partners is vitally important. Often families may be so concerned about the person and so stressed out by the situation, they may not be able to think clearly. You can help them do so and offer them tools and explanations, as well as help them problem solve. Sometimes unmet needs can be related to boredom or lack of activity. Here's a short video that addresses the need people have to do things they enjoy and how pleasant activities can help to prevent or lessen behavioral expressions.